Personal care attendants in this state perform some of the most difficult, demanding, and draining work that there is. There's more than 13,000 PCAs in this state, and as I mentioned, they care for some of our most in need, intellectually disabled, developmentally disabled residents in Connecticut. The work that the PCAs do allows those residents to stay in their homes, to be fully functioning members of their community, and to be with their families rather than being put in an institutionalized setting. So the issue presented by this resolution, I think, is rather simple. If we all value the work that the PCAs do, and I think we do, then the question is, do we also value the workers who do that work? And that's really the question presented by this resolution. The Chamber did that 6 years ago. It valued these PCAs when it voted to grant them the right to collectively bargain with the state for the base wages that they earn. The original agreement that resulted from that collective bargaining right has expired. It's been expired for more than a year. And what we're voting on today is approving an amendment to that existing contract. I want to be clear here. These are not state workers. Let me say that again. These are not state workers. But because of the way that Medicaid funds work and flow down federal and state funds that pay for the services that these PCAs provide, the state of Connecticut is able to negotiate the base rate range that they should be paid. And that's what we did previously, and that's what we're doing today with this agreement. The cost, and this is important, the cost is split with the federal government, about 55%, 45%. And it's going to cost about $7 million in the upcoming year, but that's part of the biennium budget that's already been approved, about $9.3 million in the next fiscal year and $11.3 million the following year. By the way, Mr. Speaker, I do move adoption. I was going to do that at the end, but I'll do it now. Adoption.
Question before the Chamber is on adoption of the resolution. Representative, you now have the floor.
Thank you. I'll continue. It also adds workers' compensation coverage for these workers. Now, workers' compensation coverage is important because right now what ends up happening is because after 26 hours of work, you'd have to buy a workers' compensation policy. A lot of the times, the customers who hire these PCAs then have to chop up the work that's done, hire 2 or 3 or 4 people, rather than one consistent person who knows what their needs are. There's no health care in this contract, there's no pension obligations in this contract, and the benefits far outweigh the cost. The benefits that I mentioned early on of less institutionalization, cheaper for the state, wages that we pay the PCAs are spent in the state, and we have a more professional workforce for those who are most in need. I want to just close the opening remarks by just letting one of the PCA workers speak for herself. I'd like to just note this. This is from Tashana, who's been a home health care worker, a home care provider, a PCA provider for 5 years. And she works for a man named Donnie. And Donnie's an amputee and a diabetic. And this is Tashana's own words. She says, "Low wages affect every part of my life. Even though I only bring home $272 in pay every 2 weeks, about 10% of my paycheck goes right back to Donnie because by the time I get there at the end of the week, there's usually no food in his house. So I go out and buy Donnie basic groceries like eggs and milk because I love him and I can't let him go hungry. It's hard to explain how stressful it is to be one paycheck away from living in poverty. I want the respect of being paid a living wage for the work that I do. I want the dignity of being able to support myself and my family without having to ask for a handout." I think she says it better than I possibly could, and I move adoption and urge adoption of the resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.